policy and procedures and update them. It's probably been 15 years to 20 years. So I'll just give you some of the high points. The policy had stated 16 hours max work shift with a 4 to 6 hour rest period in between. We visited that. We need to do a better job documenting our breaks and our off-duty time. So we've come up with a form for the drivers to document that. Myself, Brian Overcash with HR, and the union reps visited each of the districts, had probably an hour and a half or 2 hour meeting with each district, good open dialogue, questions, comments, feedback. I think everybody's on the same page. And recently we sent some of the supervisors and the new employees to the University of Maryland for a winter maintenance training. Doesn't feel seat time training, but you know, it gives them some things to think about. And with this 16 hours, it gives us a flexibility to start depending on start time, duration, what kind of snow. That's why we're trying to stick to the 16-hour, limit.
Zane, I have 2 questions. I'll go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and finish.
No, go ahead.
I thought you were done. I'm sorry. How many are we short going into winter?
Right now we have 7 openings.
Is that all 4 locations?
Yes, correct. Now,
7.
I think next Tuesday, Rachel's bringing 2 down. We've got a person that's transferring, but as of today,
Can you achieve this with short? Can you achieve the 16-hour?
Yeah, yes, we can. And I'll get to that in a minute on
go
the
ahead.
backup plan. We've got 34 county routes and 66 drivers. So we're reviewing those, and basically we're going over the snow emergency routes. We've identified some that we've added, secondary routes, local routes, and what they're calling no winter maintenance routes, which would be your very last roads that you would get to. So if we are short and you have one man or lady trying to cover 2 routes, they're going to concentrate on snow emergency routes and then the secondary routes, which the thought is that to get them to a county road that's going to state road or get the person to a state road.
So if you're 7 short now and you're going to foresee filling at least 2 or 3 of those positions.
Correct.
So then you'd be maybe 4 short going into winter. Oh, well, you're at winter. Could happen tomorrow.
Right.
The ones we'd hired have to have a license to drive, correct?
Correct, they do. And if memory serves me, the 2 people or 3 people that are coming to be approved next week do have their license.
EDLs, yeah.
Yes, correct.
All right, that's just my concern. You get back, you can't achieve the 16-hour without the people, and it seems to become a liability at 18, 20 hours on the road. And the only other concern, that was really my biggest concern is, to me, I always think liability. If you have a driver in there 20 hours and he does something, then I'd hate to be sitting in court with him.
Right. And it's long hours, even working with the 16 hours. And also in the union contract and the snow removal policy, it alluded to 12 and 16. So if somebody drives 12 hours and they want to go home, they can go home.
Gotcha.
The 16 hours, if you want to stay, that's fine, but you're out of the truck at 4 to 6 hours, and it's got to be documented. We've done that for the last 2 to 3 years. But our breaks, some guys would pull over for an hour and a half or so, and then they were back, on the road. So we just I need to do better with getting people, making sure they're out of the trucks, and we're going to document the breaks.
And the only other thing, and I'll be quiet, is I'm still can't figure out how we were $1 million, and you weren't there, but $1 million over budget last year with snow removal. Is that correct? on a mild winter. That always just intrigues me. Is it overtime, Sundays?
I think the $1 million was in salt.
Yeah.
And typically, I'll be honest, I felt we've always been under budgeted. I think our average is around 10,000 ton a year. Last year, we had 15,000 and change in invoices for salt, but we were out 18 days last year. So, you know, we're dictated by Mother Nature, and, you know,
I think some of the challenge in the budgeting side is to present a balanced budget, and that's a very highly variable line item. And so some of the tendency is to pick something in to balance the other numbers that are presented. And so it's hard to project what that is. So I think for this upcoming year, maybe it's artificially low for what it has historically been, but then there's also the challenge to balance the budget. But where it does impact us is, even if it's over in the highway budget and what you saw Sarah present, if it's over in the snow budget, that impacts us in other areas because we'll try to do our best to make that up. And so that may be less road prep, it may be reductions in other areas. So certainly it's something that we'll try to do our best to manage the plan to keep those costs down. But it is very expensive, and so it's also highly variable.
Well, one would say the application of salt is a safety issue,
Yes,
correct? I
yeah.
mean, it's not something, we don't have enough salt.
It's a useful tool, and there's probably a lot of opinions on the matter as well. It is costly, but it also provides a better product. It makes it so there's less man hours out on the roads because the snow melts. It doesn't bond to the pavement. So there are many benefits to it, but it is costly.
And I think the budget challenge is that if we budget a higher figure, trying to reach a middle point is where we really should try to be, not necessarily on the complete low end and maybe not overachieving, because those are dollars that we want to spend elsewhere if they're not going to be spent. And kind of historically, as we've overspent in snow, if that's the reason that the highway department is over, we've either taken that from capital reserves or, savings from the general fund if they're there. And historically, they have been there to do that. So I think that's the mindset there.
One of the things, if we could use, and I'll take from Commissioner Baker earlier, but if we could get a 5-year trend on the salt usage and you start using that as our average number for the salt, it might be a little bit higher, a little bit low, but I don't think we should be using a number artificially low to balance the budget. I mean, we need to use a realistic number.
Yep, we can look at that.
Okay.
And, also, we've got about 1,900 lane miles. And that's added about 100 miles for like Halfway Boulevard, Robinwood, your bigger roads and shoulders. So if you divide that into the million, and come up with that number, and then we were out 18 days, which a lot of times it's cheaper for a 6-inch snow than last year. A couple of times we had a couple inches of maybe a mix and snow. You get it cleaned up, and you get one that hits you again. That just drains you, So
on your salt.
Yes.
So if you don't use all your salt up this year, you can save it for next year, correct?
right, and of that $1 million last year, all 3 domes were completely filled to start the year. So the only order we would have now is for Hagerstown.
Oh, okay, that makes
Good, good. That's good to
And
know.
that's every year, whatever's left over in town, we put it in the domes.
Zane, a quick question back to the number of hours our drivers can drive, 16. How does that compare with truck driving regulations that the federal government might have? I know they're time limited on their hauls.
They are, I think, limited to 10 or 12 hours driving. But and I have not been able to find it, anything different, but I think the DOT regs in the state of emergency, we are exempt from those hours, but I personally don't feel like that gives us the permission to just hammer the drivers.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what we talked about, and we talked to other folks at the state as well about what they do and trying to find that balance of just because you can doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. And so it's finding that balance. I think if we got up against the wall and let's say we had to deviate from this, we could make some phone calls to make sure if there's a situation that we need to have staff 24/7 and that we can't stick to the 16-hour rule because it's dire consequences, then we can talk about that because I don't know that it is federally required once that emergency goes into place to stick to that. But we're trying to put some good principles in place and policies in place to help manage it so that we're not taking advantage of people or putting them in potentially unsafe situations, to the best of our ability.
In the past, when we do have blizzards, we try to get everybody in and keep them because one, you don't know if somebody's going to make it home, and then two, the big thing is trying to get them back in. So we feel it's safer and better to have all your people, in their district.
Okay, that was for information.
All right, anything else? Any questions, commissioners? All right, thank you for the update. Next, Highway Department position realignment.
Guess I should introduce myself since I didn't get to do that. Apologies for being late. You guys
It's
were
okay,
quite
you're
along.
on.
early.
You're on time.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works, here before you to seek a recommended motion for the county commissioners to approve position reassignments within the Highway Department. The Highway Department maintenance responsibilities have increased while equipment, manpower, resources, and capital investment have not. Adjustments within the Highway Department organization are needed to adapt to current challenges as well as future expected trends. The proposed adjustments are anticipated to provide assistance with operational efficiencies while creating internal opportunities for career development. So to recap here a little bit, the Highway Department has an FY20 operating budget of $11.5 million for operations, at $500,000 in the capital budget. There's 88 full-time employee positions that maintain county roads, as well as stormwater facilities, sidewalks, signs, and pavement markings. They do fleet management services, manage inmate crews, and respond to emergency road conditions on a 24-hour, 7-day-week basis. To give you a scenario here of where we're at, since 2009, the total miles maintained by the county increased from 850 to 895. The stormwater ponds have increased from 50 to 150, and during that time, the number of full-time employees reduced from 92 to 88. Also coinciding, to bring it up again, the highway user revenue, which is a major funding source historically, declined from a peak of $9 million per year to the present $870,000. So just to give you an idea of how this all trickles down to a challenge, one of many that we're trying to figure out how to solve and manage, is we have 43 plow trucks, and they have an average age of 13 years, and 32 of those vehicles meet the replacement guideline requirements. We need a minimum of 33 trucks, give or take, to cover these winter snow removal route zones. And each route does take about 4 to 6 hours to complete a single pass, to give you an idea of time frame. So just if we took those 33 vehicles alone, that represents about $7 million of investment, and then a reoccurring annual investment of about 4 vehicles per year, or $1 million to sustain the fleet. However, projected capital contributions only allow for about 1 to 2 vehicles. So you can see how this is working itself out as the budgets, particularly in high vehicles in service longer, they cost more, it's compounding. So that's just kind of an example of some of the trends that we've seen. So as the county continues to grow and develop, we're anticipating the number of road 10 years ago now consume a greater amount of staff attention to perform the same tasks. So to give you an example, 10 years ago to replace a culvert, these guys could do the same task 10 years ago. The highway department must adapt to the trend and efficiently manage available resources to provide expected services while remaining compliant with the current regulations that we're experiencing. So we do have a vacant non-exempt grade 13 section supervisor position. That was Zane's former position. And he can tell you a little bit more in detail about what he used to do. But that was more on the crew level, working with the individual sections and the work crews and the work that they're completing on a daily basis. And proposing to reclassify that to an exempt grade 16 supervisor of operations position. This position will assist in managing the department from an organizational and work planning perspective, focusing on regulatory compliance. They'll serve in Zane's absence if he's away, and allow for 24/7 supervisor coverage during weather and crisis incidents. So in the current structure, there are 4 grade 13 supervisors in the central section, and that can lead to redundancies, particularly in the summer mowing season, as crew resources are split and we have one crew that works almost exclusively just with mowing ponds and roadside shoulders, and so sometimes we're doubling up. The other thing at the other end of the scale is a vacant full-time grade 6 motor equipment operator. We'll call it an MEO 1 position, and proposing to divide that into 2 seasonal MEO 1 positions. During the salary study that was done in 2018, all employees that had a commercial driver's license were upgraded to the MEO 2 position, with the exception of this one employee who didn't have a CDL and has since retired. So we feel that this position can be more fully utilized as a seasonal position during the summer month when there's additional need for labor tasks such as flagging, tree removal, trimming, because as I mentioned, we lose a whole work crew to do really nothing but mowing anyway. I think this position will be well suited to be based in the central highway section, so they can report there, but they can be used across the county to supplement existing crews where needed if they're doing a larger job or need some labor type support in whatever they're doing. I should mention that the seasonal positions, they are used effectively elsewhere in the county as entry-level positions for candidates who may not have the experience and qualifications of higher-level positions, or people that look to only work part of the year in construction. So part of what we have now is for that MEO 2 position that requires a CDL. And so the challenge is if we're hiring people that don't have that, we're giving them 9 months to attain that, and there's not really any fallback position for them at a lower level if they're a exemplary employee, but if they don't meet that qualification. So I don't know if you have anything to add, challenges as far as that lack of a laborer position.
The summertime is the hardest. The retention ponds take 3 to 4 people. The road mowers, now I'm speaking of Hagerstown, their central district, and the road mowers take 4 people. So there are 7 or 8 people that basically from mid-April to end of September, early October, that are just mowing grass. Not that it's not important and doesn't need done, but that is a crew that you essentially lose. So the part-time help would give us some relief, would free up a couple people.
So what, you're proposing a central supervisor, grade 13, which you were.
Correct.
You're proposing now a grade 16 supervisor of operations.
Correct.
And then you're proposing basically a couple part-time MEO with CDL license, right? Or at least
No,
time.
the MEO 1s would be more of a labor position.
Okay,
that
they
would
wouldn't have
help
to
out.
have CDL, so that, and there's no fiscal impact I'm seeing.
Yeah, part of that is because the grade 13 positions, they are eligible for overtime. So when we're talking winter weather operations, whatever
Gotcha.
the case may be, there's overtime there. The going to a seasonal position, there's no benefits there. So, I mean, not to put you on the spot, Sarah, but we looked at some of the numbers, and so it was almost a wash when you factor some of those things out. Some of it's going to be based on who the person is taking the position and where they're at currently. But just looking at the positions, it was about neutral.
You both concur that this is the best way to go?
Well, to take a step back, I mean, if we could have 10 people, we will take 10 full-time people. So don't project this as like, this is number one priority. We're trying to do the best, I guess, to get people and
Randy
out
wants
on the
to give 'em
road.
to you.
If you have 10 people, we'll take them. So this
About
is
80.
not, I guess, priority number one.
So how
but
many
I
are we
think-
short on this? We're
7.
7.
Well,
Okay.
that would be the current vacant positions, but you're
Correct.
saying even if we get people staffed, I think the trend is, even if you look at keeping up with where we were 10 years ago and the number of miles of road and stormwater ponds, you could say, well, based on inflation, you should have 5 or 6 more people. And we've been going the opposite direction. So I understand the budget constraints, and so I think we're more looking from a sense of practicality and, okay, well, if another 10 people isn't reasonable, what do we think is reasonable? And some of these things, they're not us saying we'd like to spend more time doing permitting, but the reality is that's a greater burden, and so somebody's going to need to assume that
Well,
role
just
and
for my
responsibility.
information, it would, if the wish list said it would give you a couple people, would it be part-time, full-time, or?
I'll defer to Zane on that.
I mean, if it was a wish list, yeah, I would prefer full-time. I think, you would have people there just like for this time of year when inevitably, vacation, sick leave.
Yeah, but I'm confused. You said you're 7 short, you're gonna hire a couple. That leaves you 4 or 5 short. Are those 4 or 5 people budgeted?
They are.
Then why, if you had those 4 or 5 people budgeted, how comes we haven't hired them?
Some of it is, so when we got the green light to hire back in July, that first wave, because a lot of these positions are union, they have to be advertised internally. Then you go through that process, then they're externally. So the first round that we did, because there's different positions in the different sections, essentially we just reshuffled the deck. So if a position opens up in Central and somebody's in East, and they say, I want that position in Central, they transfer over.
I
Now
understand.
you have to do that, so then it's another advertisement.
I'm just confused. I understand completely
Yeah.
what you're saying. You restructure, you get your 7 people you're short because they're budgeted. What's that do for you?
It helps get us up to full staff.
And I guess my question is again, if we know we've been 7 short, how comes we haven't advertised for 7?
We have, it's just.
You just can't
except for
get 'em?
Except these 2. Well, to go through that process of the internal, allowing the internal applicants to take a position. So that first round, we had 4 people essentially switch
Correct.
locations. And so we didn't really add anybody off the street. So I think we're looking at adding our first round of people to actually fill holes, because that first round, people had the opportunity.
Is your
to change
intention to hire
locations.
these 7?
Oh,
Or are
definitely.
you waiting for an okay to hire these 7?
No, we're proceeding through. I mean, you have a number of them that are going to be presented
We've
in the
entered,
coming weeks.
yeah, I think next week, I think there will be 3 people brought before the board to be hired. Now those interviews were about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'm sorry, guys.
So with this, that MEO1, that's one of your 7 positions right now that's vacant.
That is correct.
So you'll be going from 7 full-time to 6 full-time and 2 part-time.
Correct.
Okay.
You mean, I'd be fine with your restructure. I just can't figure, I still can't get through my head. If I wanted to hire 7 people, I'd hire 7 people within 60 days. I would think I could, but I guess I'm missing something here. The bureaucracy of
Yeah, I think
The
it's
gov-
just the process
yeah.
that it takes, yeah.
Stick with this for now.
You making a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve your restructuring and hire your 7 people if you're short 7 and it's budgeted for now, and then we'll go from there. We could say you could hire 10. You couldn't hire them anyway because you can't hire 7. So let's just go with the 7.
Well, I think they're going through that process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of 2 concurrent things. Last time I was presenting, it was just myself. Zane wasn't here. I think there was some desire for some feedback. And so anytime we're looking at a little shift or reclassification, we were trying to figure out, well, what's the next demand or need going to be? And that one MEO position was something that was just kind of hanging out there as to what we do with it.
All right, we have a motion. Randy, do you want to clarify that before we continue discussion?
Court was explaining a little bit better, but I would make a motion to approve the restructuring you proposed and then move forward with hiring your people who you're short.
Is there a second? A second? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 5-0, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mark Bradshaw, you're up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Northern Pump Station change order. Good afternoon, still to you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Takes forever.
Mark Bradshaw with the Division of Environmental Management. What I'm bringing for you today is a change order to EA Engineering Services in the amount of $158,979.80. EA was awarded the contract to design the northern pump station at the location previously determined by the county. Once the plans were 90% complete, the easement documents were prepared and appraisals were completed for the pump station lot and easement. When the owner of the pump station lot reviewed the appraisal, they discovered that the entire parcel was located within the 100-year floodplain. They were upset that the parcel was located in the floodplain and decided not to sell the county the land for the pump station and the associated easement. So at that time, we contacted the property owner to the south, which is Mr. Hoffman, and Mr. Hoffman has agreed to sell us the pump station parcel on his land and also to sell us the easements to install the necessary gravity lines and force mains associated with the new location. As a result, this is a major change in the scope, so our engineers have requested a change order in the amount of $158,979.80.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
So what are we paying for the easement or the right, or the land?
This is just a change order for the engineering contracts services.
But you said the property owner agreed to sell us land.
The original property owner agreed to sell us the land, but they've decided now not to sell it. So now we're going to relocate it to Mr. Hoffman's property on the south side of Searfoss Pike. Once the designs are completed, Todd Mosier will do the appraisals, and then at that time, we will have to purchase the land from Mr. Hoffman.
So he's agreed to sell the property at the appraised value.
Yes.
Is there an option agreement in place?
No.
I mean, it seems, well, doesn't it seem logical to acquire the land before you do the engineering design?
Generally, with an option agreement, they're going to want to know how much we're going to pay them. At this point, we have no idea. We don't even know the area of the pump station lot yet because we haven't laid it all out to determine what the area of this pump station is or the acquired, required force main and gravity line easements.
Mark, I'm looking at the change order here.
Yes.
The original contract was $360,000,
Yes.
and this change order is for $158,000. That's like half the amount. Am I reading that correctly?
You are, sir. This is a major change. I mean, basically, we had the pump station designed at 90%, and now we have to basically put them plans aside and move the pump station 2,000 feet to the south, which requires additional 2,000 feet of field surveying, so they have to go out and survey that whole alignment again, and also affected the force main alignment too, so that also has to be resurveyed. We require easements now for Mr. Hoffman, Barbara Hoffman, and the EB property, and then we also have to adjust the easement where it went through the Bostetter property. So there's a lot of work that has to go into this revision, and that's why it is so much. I mean,
The original work was based on property that now the owner has decided not to sell to us.
yes, we approached the previous owner for the pump station lot, and they agreed to sell us the parcel, or part of the parcel for the pump station. But once they saw the appraised value and realized the whole parcel was in the floodplain, they were upset and chose
my-
not to move
That's my
forward.
question.
Yeah, now that's my question. So I'm assuming because it was in the 100-year floodplain, we said it was worth less.
Yes,
Okay. For $158,000, I'm assuming we could offer more than what the appraised value is and save $158,000. If we offer more money, but it's still saving the county almost $160,000.
Yeah, but can you build it in the floodplain?
I can. I just have to elevate the structure so that they're above the 100-year floodplain elevation.
Why did we get that far and not know it was in a floodplain? How'd that happen? That'd be my question.
I mean, I personally would rather go back to this seller and say, hey, we'll give you more than what it's worth.
We have approached them and asked them if they would be willing to do that, and their answer was very bluntly no. The floodplain they've also discovered comes very close to their mother's house. It's a separate parcel, and the only way they said they would sell us the lot for the pump station is if the county agreed to sign some type of letter stating that in the event that her property or her house was ever flooded, the county would be 100% responsible for any damages. And I think I talked to county attorney's office, and they said, no, we definitely would not want to sign no such document.
I was just trying to think for $160,000.
That thought had already been previously, yes, it had been discussed with them, and the only way they're going to consider any type of offer is if we give them a carte blanche on the existing house. If it ever floods, that we'd be responsible.
Commissioners, comments, thoughts?
I'm still trying to get over how we did all that and it was in a floodplain.
We knew it was in the
Still don't have it right
floodplain,
away.
but I guess they were unaware of it.
If we approve the change order, what prevents the same thing from happening again? From us spending 90% of $158,979, and then the property owner at that point, for whatever reason, decides he doesn't want to go forward with it?
We'd be back here again, but Mr. Hoffman is definitely on board. He sees the developmental potential of the parcel. We're going through a 50-acre parcel that now will have gravity sewer, and which adds to the developmental potential of his property. So he is on board with it and realizes the benefits associated with the county installing this.
That's John Huffman.
Yes.
We need something in writing from him stating that.
Yeah, I'm glad we have a plan B, but we kind of got far along with plan A before we realized, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd concur with the attorney. I think I'd want, and I know John, he's a heck of a nice guy, but I think I'd still want, for us spend another bunch of money, I'd still want something saying that,
Should we secure that easement first?
I can't secure the easement until I do the design, so I know exactly where everything's going to be put. I mean, it's difficult to secure the easements without knowing the design, because the design has to be done to determine where everything goes. I mean, we just laid everything out
When
on
you look for an easement,
area.
are you looking for a block of ground, or are you looking for a
Both.
strip of ground?
There's going to be a 2,000-foot easement from Searfoss Pike to the southern end of his property. Then at the southern end of his property, we're going to want probably like 100 fee simple lot for the actual physical pump station. So the gravity line will be an easement 30-foot wide. And then the force main, when it comes out of the pump station, will also have a 30-foot easement to extend off his
I think once
property.
we approve this, this change order, he's gonna get whatever he wants for his property. There ain't gonna be any negotiating. That's just my take.
trying to think a way around
Have
this.
we ever bought a property, or could we put a contract on the property basically saying that we will agree, that he'll agree to the appraised value of the property plus or minus, the acreage?
I mean, that's in real estate, that's possible. Again, why don't you just do a quick survey, which spends a lot less money, and make the draft a contract with Mr. Huffman on this area, and then word it on contingencies of what you need. I know it gets more complicated, but it sure does save a lot of money if he does what happened the first time. There's got to be a legal, in real estate, there's a way to do it.
I think Commissioner Baker's right. We spend an extra $158,000 on designing this. He knows that we got to buy his property. And I think we should have that lined up before. That's my personal opinion.
I mean, you're basing everything, don't you know how many square feet you're gonna need no matter where it's at? Why can't you draft something on square feet alone?
We could probably draft up a simple option agreement based on X amount of square foot for gravity easement valued at
That's what I would
X.
do, yeah.
And then the fee simple lot, we could state that it would be unit price of so much per square foot. I mean, does that sound
You wouldn't
reasonable, Kurt?
necessarily have to, I guess you base it on square feet, that's about it, because if you can't exactly locate it with a
Correct.
survey,
I'm comfortable with that.
I mean, from legal point of view, would that be acceptable, Kirk, if we just drew up some type of option and left the
Come up with
areas?
some way to approach
and I think Mr. Huffman would work with you on that.
Yeah,
I would like to
it's
think he would.
Yeah. I've met with Mr. Don Hoffman several times on this, and he seems very agreeable to this.
And if it's all right,
Guess you postpone.
yeah, if I think it,
Do a little more legwork on it.
Commissioners, it's okay, delay this till we get this a little bit more accurate information. Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw.
Okay?
You're up again. Welcome back.
Welcome back. I didn't even have to move. The next one, I want to award a contract to Huntsberry Brothers Incorporated in the amount of $40,800 to install 240 feet of force main prior to paving of the Hager's Crossing's new connection to McDade Road. The developer Hager's Crossing project has started construction on the next phase of the project. This phase they are working on now includes installing an entrance onto McDade Road that includes XL decel lanes. The total length of the new paving is approximately 215 feet. The contractor is planning on paving the new street entrance this fall. The force main for the project we just discussed is designed to be installed on the same side of the road as the Hager's Crossing connection. I request that the price proposal from the on-site contractor Huntsberry Incorporated to install the force main prior to the paving. By having the contractor install the force main prior to the paving, we will be eliminating expensive pavement repairs if we wait until after the paving's done to install the force main.
Now, that sort of makes sense to me. Yeah. I'd motion to approve that.
second.
First and a second. Commissioners, any other questions?
Why is that our cost? Why wouldn't that be a developer-driven cost?
The force main for this project is the Northern Pump Station's force main. We're responsible for installing the gravity and the force main for that pump station. It just happens to go past where the entrance is going to be installed. And the force main does not serve the developer here. It's just happens to run along the road.
I'd like to just add, this is a unique situation, and this did not go through county procurement. I think that's really important here, just to make sure that it's being brought to you commissioners today as an opportunity to save money. And so just want to make sure everybody was aware of that.
Okay, Commissioners, any
Are
more?
you saying the county procurement process doesn't save money?
No, sir.
And you have to spend to save.
All right, I have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. I vote thank you.
I get to stay here
And you're
again.
back again.
Oh, yeah, I'm having so much fun.
Well,
Well, you're 1 for 1. Let's go for, maybe you can have a,
Go for 2 for 1.
yeah, 1 for 2, that's right.
The next request is a very similar request. I want to move the award to contract to Fayetteville Contractors in the amount of $160,366 to install the gravity sewer under Maryland 144. As I previously stated, the department's capacity management improvement plans include extending the gravity from the McCleary Hill project out at Cedar Lawn. The terminal manhole being installed for the McCleary Hill project is on the south side of 144 and will be installed in the exit lane associated with that development. The county needs to extend the gravity from this manhole under 144 westward toward US 40, where it will connect to the new force main that will eventually be installed as part of the capacity management project. To install the sewer under 144, a casing must be jack and bored under the roadway. The jack and bore requires a launching pit to be installed on McCleary Hill side of 144. The launching pit will need to be 38 feet long by 12 feet wide by 18 feet deep. To perform this work after the McCleary Hill project would be completed would be very costly and inconvenience to the McCleary Hill contractors and residents. The exit lane would need to be shut down for approximately a 2-week period, and plus then, of course, I just tore up a bunch of new pavement. So in order to reduce future costs associated with this project, I've asked the on-site contractor, Fayetteville Contractors, to give me a price to perform this work. Also in the packet, I had my engineers prepare a cost estimate for what they estimate this work would be. It was $158,200. I think they're actually a little bit light because we've been out there already installing the sewer line, and we are hitting enormous amounts of rock and groundwater. So I think the estimate from Fayetteville Contractor for $163,636 336 is a very good number. And again, like Sarah said on the previous one, I did not follow the procurement policies of the county. And this will eventually save us money instead of coming back a year later and tearing up the pavement and so forth.
Now, with these, I know in a lot of our contracts that we're currently having, they have penalties for them not being done on time. Because these last two, do they have, performance contracting that if it's not completed on a certain time frame?
No, they do not. For the last one, the contractor wants this paved by this winter, so that means they have to pave this fall. This one here, they have I know Fayetteville Contractors has to have everything completed. They were saying within 6 weeks, which I think's very